I stood there on my front lawn, golf club in hand, aiming carefully at the neon pink golf ball resting just behind the rear tire of a silver Lexus SUV. I gently tapped the ball. Clink! It ricocheted off the curb, bounced once on the hood of the car, and dropped perfectly into the plastic cup stuck in a flower pot beside my porch. Cheers exploded from my neighbors who gathered with folding chairs and cold drinks, treating my front yard like a spectator arena. One guy even brought popcorn. But the Lexus didn't belong to me. It belonged to Karen. HOA Karen. The woman who wore sunglasses even at night, patrolled our neighborhood like a mall cop with a god complex, and held more power in the Homeowners Association than any elected official in the country, or so she believed. Her car had been parked in my driveway for 7 days. Not on the street, not next to my curb, in my driveway, blocking me in, blocking my wife out. And the worst part, she wasn't even sorry. She told me, "Your driveway is common property when I say it is. Read the HOA handbook." So now, here I was, with my neighbors cheering me on as I played mini golf around her precious Lexus, which I had surrounded with windmills, flamingo obstacles, and a small fountain made from a garden hose, and 2 plastic gnomes. Hole 4 even required you to bank the ball off her tire. But just as I lined up my next shot, I heard the unmistakable click of high heels on concrete. Karen. Her sunglasses glinted under the porch light, and she stared at me like I had just kicked her dog. And then she said, "You just violated 4 HOA rules. You're about to regret this." 1,111 Violation 13B, Karen said, pulling a small blue book from her crocodile skin handbag like it was a holy relic. No unauthorized landscaping, recreational structures, or decorative water features on front-facing lawns. She flipped to a tabbed page and held it inches from my face. "You've committed no less than 11 infractions, and that's just from what I can see without binoculars." The neighbors fell silent. Even the guy with the popcorn stopped mid-chew. I squinted at the book, then looked around at my glorious creation, an 8-hole mini golf course that zigzagged around her Lexus, complete with fake turf, garden gnomes, and hand-painted scorecards. It had taken me 2 solid days, a trip to Home Depot, and a YouTube tutorial by a 12-year-old to put it all together. I took a breath. "Karen, your car has been blocking my driveway for a week." I called. I texted. I even left a sticky note that said, "Please move your car, or I'll build a golf course around it." "And I ignored it," she said proudly, "because this is bigger than you. This is about standards, order. You know how many HOA fines I can file for this." I stared at her. Then I turned to the crowd. "Who here has had a run in with Karen's standards?" Almost every hand shot up. Mr. DeLuca from across the street stepped forward. "She fined me $50 because my Halloween skeleton was smirking too aggressively." "She cited me for having more than 2 lawn gnomes," Mrs. Nguyen added. "Said it created an unsettling fairy tale atmosphere." Karen's head snapped back like a crow hearing a challenge. "I warned you all. When you moved here, you signed a contract, and I enforced that contract." She jabbed her finger toward my house. "If your mini golf madness isn't gone by tomorrow, you'll be fined $500 a day. Oh, and your mailbox paint is fading. That's another $100. She turned sharply and marched down the driveway, her heels clacking against the concrete, like a judge's gavel thin stepped into the Lexus, still dead center in my driveway. But instead of starting it, she pulled out a sleep mask, and reclined the seat. "She's living in it now?" my wife whispered behind me. "I think she's nesting," I said, watching as Karen unwrapped a cucumber sandwich and put on a classical music playlist. Everyone stood stunned. Karen, HOA queen, was now camping in my driveway. "I think we made her snap," someone muttered. But I wasn't done. No, Karen wanted war. I was about to give her the craziest, most colorful, HOA violating golf war she'd ever seen. Because tomorrow, Hole 9 was going to involve fireworks. But before I could even share my plan, I got a letter in the mail. No envelope, just a folded, perfectly creased piece of paper jammed into my front door. It was from the HOA board president. Not Karen, someone higher. Someone who hadn't spoken to a resident in 5 years. The note read, "We need to talk. Urgently. Tonight. Bring no one." I didn't even know the HOA president had a name. Karen always acted like she was in charge of everything. I thought the board was just a myth like unicorns or polite DMV workers. But now, I was being summoned. At 11:47 p.m., I left my house wearing a hoodie, a flashlight in one hand, a plastic golf club in the other. Not for protection. I just didn't want Karen to think I'd quit playing. The meeting place? Lot 6B, the for sale home, at the end of the street that had been empty for 2 years. The lights were always off. No one ever came in or out. The mailbox was sealed with HOA tape. I pushed open the creaky gate and stepped through the backyard. That's when I saw it. A trapdoor, hidden beneath a fake barbecue grill. I stared. No way. I lifted it. Stairs leading underground. Because of course the HOA had a secret underground bunker. Heart racing, I climbed down. The air smelled like printer toner and lemon-scented cleaner. Fluorescent lights flickered above as I walked through a narrow hallway until I reached a door with a gold plaque. President Howard. Oh, a supreme chair. I knocked. Enter. Inside, a man with snow-white hair and perfect posture sat behind a desk made of polished cedar. He wore a navy suit, pocket square, and a pin that read, "Decency above all." His glasses reflected the glow of a dozen security monitors. Each one displayed a different home in the neighborhood, including mine and Karen's car. "I've been watching you," he said calmly. "You built a golf course." "Yes, a very colorful golf course. It's art." He leaned forward. "It's war." I froze. "Sir, are you mad?" He smirked. "No, I'm impressed. You see, when I appointed Karen as vice enforcement chair, I never imagined she'd take the job so seriously. She was supposed to monitor lawn heights and trash bins, not declare herself queen of the cul-de-sac. I sat slowly, unsure if this was a trap. "She's out of control," he continued. "She's filed 163 citations this year. Fined a Girl Scout troop for selling cookies without a business license. I had to smooth it over with a donation and 2 apology baskets." He stood, walking over to a whiteboard filled with Karen's offenses, circled in red. "You building that golf course exposed her, publicly. You did what we couldn't. So why not fire her?" He looked at me like I'd asked why clouds float. "Because we can't. Karen's not officially part of the board anymore. She was removed last year." I blinked. "Then how?" "She never stopped showing up." That's when I realized the truth. Karen didn't run the HOA. She was squatting in power. "Then tell everyone," I said. Tell them she has no real authority." He shook his head. "That's not how it works. The neighborhood believes in her power. If we remove her now, it'll cause chaos. Civil disobedience, lawn anarchy, flamingos on every yard." I stared. "You're saying we need her?" "I'm saying we need her gone. Quietly. Without a scandal. Without fire." He walked over to his shelf and pulled down a leather folder. Inside were documents, plans, maps. "I want you to finish what you started. Expand the golf course. Make it bigger, brighter. Turn your lawn into a theme park of rebellion. Push her. Make her crack." My jaw dropped. "You want me to break Karen?" He nodded. "Break her spirit. Make her leave. She'll exile herself if she thinks she's lost control." I took the folder, my brain spinning. This was no longer about petty driveway revenge. This was an operation. But the second I got home, something felt wrong. My mini golf course was gone. No turf, no flamingos, no windmill, just bare grass and tire tracks. And on my porch, a single flamingo, snapped in half. Its beady eyes pointed straight at me. Karen had struck back. The broken flamingo stared up at me like a warning from a villain in a spy movie. Karen had wiped my golf course clean overnight. Every blade of turf, every flower pot obstacle, even the snack table my wife set up with juice boxes and granola bars was gone. Just gone. And somehow, she'd done it without waking a single neighbor. I picked up the snapped flamingo, its pink plastic neck bent at a haunting angle, and turned to my wife, who stood behind me in a hoodie and slippers. "She's not just mad," I said. "She's escalating." But I wasn't scared. I was fired up. Because Karen just made the biggest mistake of her HOA reign. She took everything. Now, I had nothing left to lose. The next morning, Operation Mini Golf Mayhem officially launched. I recruited the entire neighborhood. Every person Karen had ever fined, shamed, or cited for crimes like wind chime aggression or overly enthusiastic Christmas decor. They came in waves. Mr. DeLuca brought lumber. Mrs. Wynn brought 10 boxes of flamingos. Teenagers arrived with power tools and Bluetooth speakers. By 10 a.m., my lawn was transformed into something Karen couldn't erase overnight. A neighborhood-sized, rebellion-themed megacourse. We built Hole 1, with ramps made from Karen's own printed citations. Hole 2 required you to bank a ball off a rotating garden gnome powered by an old ceiling fan motor. And Hole 6? That one was my favorite. We called it the Citadel. It was a 10-foot replica of Karen's house made from cardboard and duct tape. And to score, you had to launch the ball through her imaginary garage and out the fake back door. The street buzzed with laughter and energy. Neighbors were cheering. Kids were playing. Someone was blasting Queen's "We Will Rock You." But then, a siren. Not police. Worse. The HOA van. It screeched around the corner white, boxy, unmarked except for the small silver emblem that read Property Integrity Unit. Out stepped 2 men in suits, sunglasses, and identical clipboards. The crowd froze. Karen followed behind them, smirking like a cat with a bird in its teeth. She wore a sash that read, Acting HOA Authority, and a scarf covered in tiny scales of gold. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said loudly, arms outstretched, "this unlawful gathering is in gross violation of Code 7A, 12C, and the rarely invoked but still binding Rule 9Z. Thou shalt not encourage community disobedience through whimsical architecture. One of the clipboard men nodded. We've received 37 noise complaints this morning. From who? Probably Karen. 37 times. She pointed to me like she was Caesar, and I was the condemned gladiator. And you, ringleader of this suburban circus, will face a hearing. Tonight. At sunset. Gasps rippled through the crowd. HOA hearings are real, a teenager whispered. They're usually just strongly worded emails, someone replied. Karen grinned. This will be the first in-person tribunal in over a decade. Then she turned to the clipboard men. Confiscate the course. The agents moved fast, snapping pictures, tagging objects, and placing red stickers that read, Violation pending. But then, boom, one of the gnomes exploded in a puff of glitter and confetti. Hole 4. I forgot we rigged it with party poppers. Chaos. Kids cheered. Someone yelled, The revolution has begun! And started pelting flamingos at the van. The clipboard guys ducked. Karen screamed. And in the middle of the confusion, a familiar voice whispered in my ear. Nice job, soldier. I turned. It was President Howard, in a tracksuit and sunglasses, handing me a sealed envelope. What's this? I asked. Your official defense packet, he said. You'll need it at the tribunal. He looked serious. If she wins the hearing, you'll be fined into the next dimension, possibly evicted. I opened the envelope. Inside, blueprints, secret bylaws, and a photo of Karen, standing in front of a mailbox, holding a sledgehammer. My eyes widened. This is her? Howard nodded. Caught on camera. Vandalism. 5 years ago. She blamed teens. We covered it up. I looked closer at the photo. This wasn't just a random act. Karen had a past. A dirty, rule-breaking, cover it up and climb the ladder past. And now, I had proof. The tribunal was tonight. Karen thought she had me. But now, I had the nuke. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the cul-de-sac. Folding chairs formed a rough circle in my front yard, which still bore faint golf ball dents and footprints of rebellion. At the center, a table draped in white cloth with a plastic HOA emblem taped to the front. 3 people sat behind it. President Howard, a nervous-looking woman named Linda from the HOA finance team, and Karen. She sat tall in a high-backed chair she brought herself gold-trimmed, with a velvet cushion. Her sash was gone. Tonight, she wore a full blazer suit and a smug expression that could stop time. The neighbors gathered quietly behind me. No popcorn this time. This wasn't fun anymore. This was court. President Howard spoke first. This is an emergency disciplinary hearing under HOA Protocol 15F. The charge: unauthorized recreational development, public nuisance, and mass flamingo deployment. Karen cleared her throat, already clutching a stack of papers. I'd like to begin by submitting 74 documented violations, she said, handing them to Linda. Each one committed by Mr. Davidson. She pointed at me with her perfectly manicured finger, including, but not limited to, false lawn structures, simulated flamingo warfare, obstructive gnome placement, and inciting an anti-HOA rally via TikTok. She turned to the crowd. We all saw it. He weaponized fun to attack order. Linda scribbled furiously. The air felt like it was holding its breath. Howard nodded. Defense? I stepped forward. No lawyers, just me, and the truth. I didn't build a golf course to mock the rules, I said. I built it because I was trapped. Karen parked in my driveway for a week, and when I asked her to move, she ignored me, laughed, said the rules didn't apply to her. A few neighbors murmured. Karen's lips twitched. I took a breath and reached into my folder. And that's when I found this. I held up the photo. Karen, 5 years ago. Standing over a smashed mailbox, hammer in hand. The crowd gasped. This is Karen, destroying private property, which she later blamed on teenagers. The board covered it up. Howard turned pale. Linda blinked. Is this real? Karen laughed, high-pitched and sharp. That's ridiculous. Anyone could have faked that. Photoshop, deepfakes. Besides, it's ancient history. I held up another document. And this? An HOA newsletter from the same week signed by Karen, announcing stricter mailbox regulations, right after the vandalism. Her face dropped. I turned to the neighbors. She broke the rules to make the rules, then used those rules to fine us, shame us, park in our driveways. She isn't defending order. She's using it as a weapon. Howard stood slowly. He looked between the photo, the papers, and Karen, and then said the words I never thought I'd hear. Effective immediately. Karen is hereby stripped of all HOA authority. Gasps. Cheering. Someone wept into a pool noodle. Karen stood, knocking over her chair. You can't do this. I am the HOA. Howard looked her in the eye. No, Karen, you were. Now you're just a neighbor. She screamed. Actually screamed. A long, shrill, like a dragon losing its last horde. And then she stormed off. Past the Flamingo Memorial. Past the shattered remnants of her power. Past her own Lexus, which was now fully blocked in by tiny putting greens built by the neighborhood kids. She tried to get in. It wouldn't open. One of the teenagers called out, "We glued it shut!" Everyone roared with laughter. 1 week later, the golf course was still there. Only now, it was bigger. Official. Community approved. We called it Freedom Fairway. Every Saturday, the neighborhood came out to play. Mr. DeLuca ran the snack cart. Mrs. Wynn taught pudding lessons. Even Howard stopped by in a polo shirt and visors. As for Karen, her house went up for sale 2 days after the tribunal. The sign out front read, "Motivated seller. Buyer must respect flamingos." I stood on my lawn, sipping lemonade, watching a little kid bank a shot off the gnome windmill. It dropped in. Hole in one. He fist pumped. Take that, Karen. I laughed. Justice had been served. By putter.